I still remember that night like it happened yesterday. The North End was buzzing, streets packed with tourists chasing cannoli and locals arguing about the Red Sox. Inside O'Malley's bar, the air smelled of spilled beer and fried clams. My friends, if I can still call them that, were gathered around the same corner table where we'd been meeting for years. I was nursing a cheap lager, trying not to think too much about turning 60. That's when it happened. "You're finished, Richie," Tommy said, slamming his glass down so hard the ice rattled. 60 years old, no job, no wife, no plan. What's left for you? Bingo on Thursdays?" The others burst out laughing, a cruel harmony that echoed. In my chest, I forced a smile, but inside I was burning. As their laughter rang out, my mind betrayed me with a flashback. The same booth, 20 years earlier. Those very same men had surprised me on my 40th birthday with a cake crammed into a pizza box. Candles crooked, singing off-key. Back then their laughter had been a gift. Tonight it was a knife. The contrast nearly broke me. I walked home that night under the glow of street lamps on Hanover Street. The smell of fresh bread from the bakeries mixing with the stink of last night's garbage. My pockets were empty, my pride even emptier. Their words hit the one place I had no armor, the fear that maybe they were right. But something shifted as I lay awake. Somewhere between regret and rage, I felt a snap. I wasn't finished. I refused to be. A week later, I was staring at a dusty for-lease sign in front of a small brick storefront just 2 blocks from O'Malley's. My heart thumped louder than the traffic. That night at the bar wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The next Friday, I still went back to O'Malley's. Habit is a chain you don't break overnight. The bar smelled the same. Beer-soaked wood, fried onions, and that sharp tang of bleach they never used enough of. Tommy was already there, playing king of the corner booth. He raised his glass when he saw me, a smirk tugging his lips. "Look who crawled back," he said. I forced a laugh, slid into the booth, and nodded at Eddie behind the bar. "1 lager." My voice sounded tired, like it didn't belong to me. The guys kept talking about the Patriots' chances that season, about their kids, about retirement plans. Me, I sat there invisible, each word from them just rubbing salt into a wound they didn't even realize they'd made. "So, Richie," Tommy leaned in, voice thick with whiskey, "any plans to prove us wrong? Or are we going to keep toasting too? Your early retirement from life?" The table erupted again. This time, I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch, staring into my glass like it might offer a map out of this mess. I left earlier than usual, pushing through the heavy wooden door into the cool night. The cobblestones of North End glistened from a light drizzle. As I walked past tiny cafes still lit up with couples laughing over espressos, I caught myself thinking, they don't spend their nights rotting in bars. They live. That thought hit me like a punch. For the first time in years, I felt ashamed of how small my world had become. The following morning, I tried to distract myself with errands. I bought groceries at Monica's, picked up bread at Bova's, bakery. But everywhere I went, the city seemed alive with people hustling, working, starting fresh. A young woman at the bakery counter told me she had just opened her own catering business. Her eyes glowed with determination. I walked out with my bag of rolls and a gnawing question. Why not me? Later that week, I stopped in front of that dusty storefront again. The for-lease sign looked as worn as I felt. Through the grimy glass, I could make out a counter, some old chairs stacked in the corner and sunlight hitting the brick wall in a way that almost looked warm. My chest tightened. I pressed my forehead against the glass, whispering to myself, maybe. Then I noticed the fine print, $3,200 per month. Just rent. My stomach flipped, but the vision pulled harder than fear. That night, I brought it. Up to my sister Marie over dinner. She was stirring her pasta sauce when I blurted it out. "I'm thinking about opening a café." She froze, wooden spoon mid-air, then burst out laughing. "Richie, you barely know how to brew a decent pot of coffee!" I felt my ears heat up. "I'll learn," I said, quieter this time. She sighed, put the spoon down, and looked at me with that mix of pity and love only sisters can manage. "Look, I don't want to see you get hurt. 60 isn't the time to start dreaming this big." Her words stung more than Tommy's because I knew she cared, but instead of breaking me, they lit something inside. If even Marie doubted me, then I had no choice but to prove everyone wrong. The next morning, I walked into the realtor's office. The young guy behind the desk looked barely 30. "You sure about this?" he asked, after I told him which property I wanted to see. I nodded, even though my stomach was in knots. Inside the space, the air smelled of dust and old wood. I ran my hand along the counter, imagining fresh coffee, pastries, the hum of conversations instead of drunken jeers. My vision felt so real it scared me. I signed the initial paperwork that afternoon, hands trembling as I held the pen. As I walked out onto Hanover Street, the city seemed louder, brighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't drifting. I had a purpose. Still, I knew the hardest part hadn't even begun. Behind every "for lease" sign is a graveyard of broken dreams. I just prayed mine wouldn't be next. The landlord, Mr. Russo, met me in the doorway, jangling a ring of keys the size of a softball. "Old building," he said, shouldering the door open. "You'll find surprises." The place was smaller than I remembered, maybe 680 square feet. But the light from the front windows laid warm rectangles across the scuffed wood. "How many seats you thinking?" he asked. 10 tables, 24 seats, I said, pretending I'd thought about it for weeks. 24? He raised an eyebrow. "You'll need an occupancy number from ISD before you promise anything." The word ISD landed like a cough in a quiet church. I spent the next morning with a legal pad at a high top in Café Vittoria, counting costs between sips of burnt espresso. Espresso machine 2 group used, 5,800, grinder 950. Counter refinish 2,400. Paint and patch 600. Permit fees, shrug emoji. I wrote the shrug in ink because it felt honest. A guy about my age glanced over. "You opening a place?" "Trying," I said. He smiled. "Try with both hands." That stuck with me all day. Marie called. "Rich, I found a used equipment warehouse in Chelsea. Want me to drive?" I hesitated. Pride is a lousy co-pilot. "I got it." She went quiet. "You don't have to prove everything alone." I softened. "Okay, tomorrow." That night, I walked by O'Malley's. Tommy's. Laugh hit the street like a car alarm. I kept walking, hands in my pockets, letting the cold chew at my knuckles until I reached the Paul Revere Mall. The statue's shadow cut the brick like a sundial, patient as time. Chelsea was fluorescent lights and metal racks and more stainless steel than I'd seen in one place. A woman in a denim apron approached, hair in a messy bun. "Maya," her name tag said. "What's the dream?" I told her, a small café, North End, espresso, pastries, maybe panini. She nodded. "Panini triggers questions on ventilation. If you keep it to espresso and baked goods, fewer hoops. Let's start smart." I liked her immediately. We tested an old La Marzocco with a hiss like a cat settling down. "It'll need new gaskets," she said. "I'll knock off $500. I didn't breathe until she printed the invoice. Back in Boston, I took a barista class at George Howell. "You can taste fruit in coffee," the instructor said, pouring slow. I felt ridiculous. Then I sipped and found, I swear, a little cherry at the edge of the heat. I grinned like a kid who finally made a decent paper airplane. After class, Maya texted me a supplier list. "Call these. Ask for starter terms. Don't overorder. First week, 15 lbs beans, assorted grind. 3 cases milk. Pastries consignment. If possible. I called 12 suppliers that afternoon, got 5 callbacks and exactly 2 yeses. It felt like scoring touchdowns against a bigger team. Paperwork became my new language. City of Boston Licensing Board, Common Victualler Application, ISD, Occupancy Load and Floor Plan, Health Division, Serve Safe, Food Manager, Hand Washing Sink Placement, Fire, Extinguishers and Lighted Exit Signs. You have your plans? The ISD clerk asked through glass so thick my reflection looked younger. Rough sketch, I said, holding up graph paper. She slid it back. Get a stamped plan. And the bathroom must be ADA. If it isn't, you'll open late or not at all. My stomach sank. I hadn't even looked at the bathroom. The bathroom was a closet with a sink the size of a salad bowl. You'll have to widen the door. Move. The toilet back. Install grab bars. Maybe shift the wall, the contractor said, tapping the tape measure. Ballpark? I asked. 13 grand if nothing ugly is hiding. He glanced at the ceiling. Old building. Surprises. I thought. Of my dwindling savings, $28,400 after the equipment deposit. Can we stage it? He shrugged. We can try. I signed anyway, pen trembling just enough that my signature looked like a lie. Word got around the block faster than I could tape craft paper over the windows. Mrs. DeLuca from the third. Floor popped in. We don't need more tourists, she said, but her eyes softened when I said, locals first. Eddie from O'Malley's stopped on his smoke break. You serious? He asked. I nodded. Good, he said, exhaling up. Into the cold. That place has been empty too long, but Tommy's been running his mouth. I braced. Says you won't last 3 months. Says we'll still see you Fridays. Eddie flicked ash. Prove him wrong. The first week of light work, we scrubbed the floors, patched holes, and rolled primer thick as yogurt. I tracked micro wins. Day 1, removed 14 nails, patched 11 holes. Day 2, primed 3 walls, argued with 1 electrical panel that hummed like a hornet. Day 3, placed first order, 10 lbs medium roast, 5 lbs dark, 2 cases oat, 1 case whole. On day 4, I hit a neighborhood meeting to introduce myself. Small café, closing at 6, no alcohol, no sidewalk clutter, I said. Heads nodded until Tommy stood in the back, arms folded. He doesn't finish what he starts, he said. Ask anyone at O'Malley's. The room rustled. My mouth went dry. I'm finishing this, I said, steady as I could. Mrs. DeLuca lifted her chin. Let the man try. The next morning I unlocked the door whistling, half out of nerves, half out of spite. I was carrying a box of mugs, 12 white, thick-rimmed, $3.20 each, from Restaurant Depot. When the color hit me first, a bright orange sheet taped to the glass. Stop work. Permit required. My chest collapsed in on itself. I looked. At the corner where the contractor had knocked down a knee-high partition to fit a wider path to the bathroom. We didn't touch structure, he'd said. The notice didn't care. It listed a number and a deadline. Respond within 72 hours. I stared at the mugs, ridiculous in their cardboard cradle, and heard Tommy's laugh echo from 2 blocks away. The ISD office smelled like toner and tired coffee. The clerk in the grey cardigan lifted the orange notice with 2 fingers. You widened a passage, she said, tapping the fine print. For us, that's structural. You'll need stamped drawings, a licensed GC, an updated egress, and a narrative of work. Don't touch a thing until the permit posts. My throat tightened. How long does that take? She shrugged in fluent Boston. Depends how fast you move. Softer, almost kind. You can do this. Back at the space, Mr. Russo stared up at the ceiling. Sprinkler heads are too close to the new path, he said. Any change triggers more changes. The contractor whistled. Add 2 grand for sprinklers. Architect might run 5 to 7 if you don't need revisions. My mental math turned into a panic scroll. Savings $28 to $400, minus bathroom $13,000, minus machine deposit, minus paint, minus. I gripped the counter and breathed through the wobble in my knees. I called Marie and admitted what I hadn't wanted to say. "I'm short." She arrived with a laptop and 2 cappuccinos. We built a spreadsheet until the cells felt like bricks. Architect $6,200. Sprinklers $2,300. Door ADA to $400. Permit fees $1,020. Contingency 10%. She looked up. "You're down about $9,000. Pride tried to argue. Reality won. "I'll sell the Subaru," I said. She blinked, surprised. "That's not nothing. Neither is this dream," I answered. I texted Maya, "Stop work. Need a way to keep momentum." She called in 60 seconds. "Pop up," she said. "Coffee window from your doorway on weekdays, Greenway cart on weekends, no seating, no interior work. Keep the machine portable. Apply for a 1-day vendor permit. You build brand and cash while the drawings roll." I stared at the espresso machine like it might grow legs. "Can we pull that off?" "We can," she said. That we steadied me like a hand on my back. 2 days later, a blue canopy flapped above my threshold like a stubborn seagull. The cart sat just inside the line, a rubber mat marking the window. A quiet generator hummed in the alley. I prayed the neighbors wouldn't mutiny. I hung a hand-painted board, "Hanover Coffee, coming soon." Day 1, 63 cups, 28 Americanos, 19 cappuccinos, 16 drips, $312 gross. Lessons: tamp lighter, keep lids within reach, angle the canopy at 20 degrees, or the wind invents its own latte art. Day 2 rained sideways. I moved the cart 2 feet back, rigged a gutter with painter's tape, and learned that wet shoes make customers grumpy. 41 cups, 190 falls. Day 3, the sun returned and the street smelled like bakery sugar and ocean salt. We hit 86 cups, sold out at 2:10 p.m. Eddie wandered over from O'Malley's, cupping his hands around a cappuccino. "Not bad for a guy who won't last 3 months, he said. "I didn't say that." "Tommy did." Eddie blew on the foam. "Then make it 4 months just to spite him." People began telling me their stories between sips. An older woman with a red scarf leaned on the doorway. "I stopped going to O'Malley's years ago," she said. "But here, I feel safe." A nurse from the North End Community Health Center grabbed a flat white and whispered, "Finally, coffee on this block that isn't burnt." A young dad balanced a stroller, a latte, and his hope. "If you open early, I'll be here at 6:30. I nodded, writing "Open 6:30 on a sticky note, and beneath it, "Remember your blood pressure." The architect, short, sharp, hair in a silver bun, rolled out drawings across the dusty counter. "You can keep the layout," she said. "Bathrooms widened here, path of travel is clear, sprinklers adjusted, exits signed. Lose the panini plan for now, no cooking equals fewer hoops." We stapled the narrative like a diploma and walked it back to ISD. The cardigan clerk read in silence, then stamped the receipt with a small, satisfied smile. "You're learning," she said. It felt like passing a test I hadn't known how to study for. Saturdays on the Rose Kennedy Greenway felt like docking a small boat in a friendly harbor. A violinist soared through "Stand By Me." Kids chased bubble rainbows, and the air carried a braid of cut grass and food truck garlic. Greenway pop-up. Week 1, 112 cups by 1:30 p.m. 552 gross. Pastries on consignment from a baker in East Boston, 12 croissants, 10 cinnamon rolls sold out by noon. Week 2, 137 cups, 684 gross. Generator complaint reduced by a rubber mat under the feet and a neighborly smile. I tracked everything: milk usage, gallons day, shot yield, G25s, and the number of times I had to remind myself to breathe. Tommy showed up on doorway day 6, hoodie smelling faintly of whiskey and rain. He stared at the line as if it owed him rent. "You playing barista now?" he said. "You want something?" I asked. "Or you want to keep blocking the tip jar?" A couple behind him snorted. He flushed. "Give me whatever proves you're not finished." I pulled a tight double, syrupy, tiger-striped 30 seconds. He sipped, surprise cracking through his face. "Huh." He stepped aside. I took the next order, hands steady. The pop-up bought me time and courage. Evenings were for emails and bids, mornings for milk and grind. Marie checked on me like a metronome. "You sleeping?" "Mostly." "Pills?" "Yes." My cuff readings came down as the routine took root. The architect called. ISD asked for 1 sprinkler note revision. We're good. I sold the Subaru, wired the deposit, and watched my balance fall to a scary but survivable line. Keep moving, I told myself, like a mantra you whisper while crossing black ice. On Greenway Week 3, the line bent toward Haymarket. Maya kept a tally with a grease pencil on the cart's side. Cap 41, latte 36, drip 33, macchiato 7. At 3:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Eddie, O'Malley's closing early. Landlord wants out. Business for sale. Serious inquiries only." I wiped steam from my glasses and looked toward the bar's neon, buzzing like a tired fly. The corner booth where they'd laughed at me sat empty as a confession. My heart pounded and the milk hissed past 140 degrees. "Richie?" Maya asked. "You okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. That night, the North End glowed like a row of votive candles. St. Leonard's bells faint in the distance, the harbour breathing cool through the alleys. A crooked "business for sale, serious inquiries only" sign hung on O'Malley's door. I pressed my palm to the glass where years of my evenings had fogged it from the inside. The space was smaller than my memory and bigger than my past. I pictured the sticky floor gone, brick exposed, sunlight cutting across a counter where regret used to sit. Eddie texted again. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" I typed, deleted, typed again. Could I shoulder 2 fronts? No. One story, reclaimed. The cafe could swallow the bar's address, turn ghosts into regulars and jeers into orders. My thumb hovered, then landed. Yes. I'm interested. 3 dots pulsed like a held breath. "Owner can meet tomorrow at 9 a.m., Eddie replied. I looked. From O'Malley's crooked sign to my papered windows down the block, the air smelled like rain and second chances. I locked my cart, pocketed the day's crumpled bills. Doorway day 7, 94 cups, 448. Greenway sat, 139 cups, 696, and started toward home. The bricks under my shoes felt steadier than the numbers in my bank. But steadiness isn't only about money. It's about momentum. Across the street, Tommy lit a cigarette and watched. "Me pass." "Big step," he said into the dark. I didn't stop. "Bigger than you think," I answered. He flicked ash. "Don't fall." I smiled, not turning around. "I already did. This time I'm jumping." In bed, I lay listening. To the city, sirens softening into distance, a late train groaning near Haymarket, the quiet tick of the radiator. I set 2 alarms, laid out a clean shirt, and placed my blood pressure pills on the nightstand, like a promise to keep showing up. The ceiling was the same as the night they told me I was finished. But my chest felt different. Less cave, more engine. At 9 a.m., I'd walk back into the room that had sentenced me and make a counteroffer to its verdict. My phone buzzed one last time. "Marie, proud of you. Be smart. Call me after." I typed, "Will do," then added, "Thanks for the spreadsheets and the nagging." She replied with a heart and a coffee emoji. I closed my eyes and saw brick walls, a humming machine, the Greenway's bubbles, and a boy's stroller balanced on a latte. If fear is a door, then courage is the hinge. Mine had finally turned. Morning would come fast. I imagined the owner's handshake, the folders, the debts, the price that would make my pulse spike. I pictured the demolition, mirrors shattering, light flooding, the smell of fresh paint over ghosts. Outside, a gull cried, the harbour answering. I breathed in, held it for a 4 count, let it go. The corner booth wouldn't have the last word. Tomorrow at 9, I would. The owner of O'Malley's, a heavy man with thinning hair and eyes tired from too many late nights, met me at 9 sharp. The bar smelled like bleach that had lost the fight against decades of whiskey. She's bleeding, he said, patting. The bar like it was a sick dog. Rents high, crowds low, I'm done. You want it, make me an offer. He slid a folder across the counter. Debts, liabilities, a number that would make a sensible man walk away. My pulse, instead, picked up speed. Why me? I asked. He shrugged. You've got momentum. People talk. Your cart, your café. This place needs someone who cares about the block, not just the bar stools. You might be crazy enough. I signed an NDA, my hand shaking. Eddie, leaning against the doorway, muttered, You sure you want 2 fronts? I shook my head. Not 2-1. The cafe takes this space. O'Malley's ghosts don't get the last laugh. Marie's reaction was volcanic. You want to buy the bar that wasted 20 years of your nights? She snapped over coffee at her kitchen table. I told her about tearing out the sticky floors, opening the brick, bringing light where darkness had lingered. She rubbed her temples. Richie, this is madness. Then her voice softened. But maybe madness is what it takes. Weeks blurred into paperwork, lawyers, escrow. The pop-up cart kept me afloat. Week 1, 374 cups, 136 gross. Week 3, 505 cups, 61 pastries, 2,140 gross. Neighbors started calling the doorway cart the heartbeat. Mrs. DeLuca told anyone who would listen, This man is giving us back our street. For the first time in decades, the North End wasn't just watching me fail, it was rooting for me to win. Demolition Day cracked open old scars. The first swing shattered a mirror above the bar that had reflected my shame more nights than I cared to count. Glass rained down like a curtain call. Behind it, brick, raw, beautiful, alive. Expose it, I told the crew. Tommy showed up. On the sidewalk, hands jammed in his hoodie. So it's real, he said. Dust swirled between us. I handed him the sledge. Want to swing? He smirked, shook his head, but his eyes carried something new, respect. By October, inspections were passed, counters polished, and Hanover Coffee opened its doors. The smell of cinnamon rolls and fresh espresso curled out onto Hanover Street. That first day, the line stretched past the corner. Maya ran the La Marzocco like it was an orchestra. Marie worked the register with mock complaints. You're killing me, Richie. And Eddie bussed tables humming Sinatra. Day 1, tally, 312 cups, 1,621 gross, 86 cinnamon rolls gone before noon. Laughter filled the space where drunken jeers used to live. A week later, my old crew from O'Malley's walked in, sheepish as altar boys. Tommy led, slower than usual, and this time he had his teenage son with him. They stood at the counter like strangers in a new land. Coffee's on me, I said, pouring 4 mugs. Tommy cleared his throat. We didn't think you'd pull it off. His son's eyes scanned the room, wide. Tommy gestured toward me. This is Richie. He built this place from nothing. Hearing him say it, that was worth more than the register. They sat in the old corner booth, the one that had witnessed my humiliation. Now it was filled with espresso steam and the hum of conversation. I watched them sip, awkward but present, and for the first time in years, I felt no anger. Only a deep, quiet triumph that settled in my chest. Revenge wasn't the flavor of the coffee, it was redemption. Nights ended differently now. No more whiskey, no more pity, just the ritual of wiping counters, cashing out the drawer, and locking the door while the glow from Hanover Coffee spilled onto the cobblestones. Sometimes I'd stand outside, keys in hand, breathing in the last traces of roasted beans, listening to the city's hum, and wonder how I had ever believed I was finished. At 61, I owned the café where they once told me I was done. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it wasn't about irony anymore. It was proof that starting over isn't just for the young, proof that humiliation can turn into fuel. Proof that sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all, just standing tall in the place they swore you'd never rise. Hanover Coffee wasn't just mine. It was my second life. And every morning, when the bell chimed with the first customer, I knew I wasn't finished. I was finally beginning.